What's that?
So move the
Towards me.
no that.
Hey, Efe.
Hi. Good evening. Is it better?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Okay. It looks like I'm not positioned properly, so I'm trying to position myself a bit more. Is it better?
What you mean to
Can
stand
you?
or to sit?
I don't even know whether I'm supposed to stand or sit.
If you get your camera, I know what you mean. Okay, now you're in full shot now. We can see your head.
Yeah, I know. So I'm trying to see if what I'm trying to do wrong, because this is the same
Okay.
position I always sit in. So I'm not too sure what's going on here. Is it
No.
better?
You're fine now. You look smashing.
Okay. Is it better?
Much, much better.
Okay. Great stuff. Yeah. Great. So, good evening. Welcome. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Emisa. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. A very lazy Saturday, but I'm fine, thank you very much. I think I would like to welcome our viewers. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us. Another great session with our very own Mr. Eddie Emisa, where we're going to be talking about how you can lead and manage remotely. Thank you very much for those who have joined us right now. So Sakiko, thank you. Zenzi Estra, thank you. Ikuakari, thank you. Rachel Nad, thank you very much for joining us. As per usual, good evening one more time. My name is Genevieve. Over the last couple of months, I've done a couple of series with regards to, trying to get people back into work, trying to get people to look at different ways of having to do different things in this so-called new normal. So today we have another person who wants to share a little bit of an insight to his perspective when it comes to leading and managing remotely, and I'm sure it's going to be fantastic this evening. So thank you very much for those who have just joined. Thank you for joining, and please drop in your questions. Eddie and I will be taking the questions as we're going along, so at least we don't wait till the end. Any comments you have, please feel free to share them on the screen. So, Mr.
Don't forget
Misa,
to
good evening.
remind them. Don't forget to remind the listeners that I love interactive sessions, so they will have to be asking the questions as I'm going along. I don't
Yes,
like
sir.
end-loaded questions, so ask the questions as we're going along, and we will address it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure they've heard you, so I'm sure they will ask the questions as we're going along. So
That's
so
good.
one more time, thank you very much for joining us to share your now.
Back live with.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a bit difficult right now having to have people who have leadership and management experience where they have to manage people remotely, especially because of the new normal. But before we dive into that, how's the UK? How are you?
Well, with the COVID situation, I have still been working. I have not worked from home. I have not managed from home, or I have not led from home. So I'm out there on the field.
I see. So yours is slightly different to some of us where we get to work 2 days in the house and 3 days in the office and stuff like that. So I guess we'll
I
delve
say
deeper.
lucky to you. Lucky you lot.
Are you sure it's
Lucky you
lucky to
lot.
us? Because you do a lot more work when you're home than being in the office, to be honest. You're more busier when you're home because you're
I've got a
so
question.
focused, there's no
I've got a question.
distractions, nothing.
I've got a question for that. Is that efficient
Okay.
or effectiveness? That's one of the questions
Um,
you need to ask yourself before we start. Rhetoric.
I
Don't
guess
answer now.
I guess I'm sure I'll answer it at the end of the session. So yeah. So I think before we delve straight into it, I would like to give the opportunity for you to tell the viewers a bit about who Mr. Eddie Emisare is, and we can take it from there.
Okay, about 20 years experience in leadership and management. Member of the CMI, Chartered Management Institutes of the UK. I work alongside with Jenny. I'm coming to Ghana to do some training on leadership and management development, and working within the health and social care sector in learning and development as well in the UK. So in short, that is what I do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of apple, as we say, for our viewers so that they can take a few things with regards to that. Linked apple. Somebody's just put a message. So Pakwesi Emisa, let me see. So Pakwesi Emisa, his one and only girlfriend Elisa from South says hi. So I guess.
Okay, keep the private comments in my inbox. Inbox me directly.
So this is Issy Baby. I don't know who Issy Baby is, but whoever she is, thank you for joining us. AV Council, thank you for joining us. And Pakwesi, not Pakwesi, Pia Kobwa, please, thank you also for joining us. So if you just joined us, we just started with regards to, looking at different perspective of how to lead and manage remotely. And Eddie is going to walk us through with regards to that. So Eddie, let's go back to what you just mentioned, that we've been lucky. We're not managing from, we have been lucky because we're managing from home. We're also leading in the house, or we're leading in the office when they get to, at the office space, and also when you're in the house. But for yourself, you were saying that, you don't get to do that because you're also always on the road and stuff like that. How has, it been for you with regards to, generally leading and managing remotely or even on site, if we want to put that dimension to it?
I think, to me, I see COVID as a good reason for people to change. The virtual world is what is going to happen. There's nothing that can avoid that. We're now going to move into a technological world, which has been there for a long time, but maybe we haven't really capitalized on it. And COVID has come for a good reason for people to redirect and diversify whatever they're doing. So how has it been for me is, yes, unfortunately, I still have to attend work every day. So from February, I've been working flat out, whereby others are working from home. So there's so many innovative ideas. And the question that I posed at the beginning, effectiveness or efficiency, is what we need to look at.
So when I like that with regards to efficiency and effectiveness, and I'm sure we'll delve deeper into it and stuff. Would you say leading a team or managing a team, either on site or off site or remotely, should be different?
Let's go back, first of all, to look at the leadership skills and management skills, or the role of a leader and the role of a manager. Okay, so two different roles. Some people misconstrue that information to think it's the same. No, they're two different things.
Interesting.
When it comes to management, you rely heavily on the tangible, measurable capabilities, such as effective planning, the use of organizational systems, and the use of appropriate communication methods. Okay, but when it comes to leadership, it's totally different, and that more involves of behavior. Okay. However, you can become a leader with time. It develops as you go along, and it normally it concentrates on the facets of the humanity. Okay, and how you enable the characteristics of people that you work with on emotional basis. Now, relating it to what is happening currently and working virtually, emotions. How do you detect emotions over the phone? How do you detect emotions as I'm speaking to you? So you're smiling.
Well, I guess you can. I mean, even on the phone with my tone and everything, you still can. And even with what we're doing now, you still can tell my emotions. It's excitement. It's everything.
Exactly. So we can go back to the theme that I want to establish with this virtual learning about effectiveness or efficiency. Somebody works 9 to 5 in the office. Is that efficiency? Somebody could work from home from 10 to 2. Whereby they do more than being at home. How do you measure that? When you speak into the person, how do you know that? what have you set, be it a manager or a leader, what things have you set in place? So this is where I'm coming from. How can you measure that emotion? I can come on the phone and say, hey, guess what, boss? I did this and I did that, and I'm smiling, I'm laughing. But how do you measure? If it's in the office, you can walk to the person's desk and then they can go, oh, yes, because the evidence is there in front of you. But virtually, how can you measure that? And I think that is what we're going to delve into more today.
But before we go on and delving deeper into it, I'd like to say a big shout out to Atuwake 11 who just joined us. Thank you for joining us, and you've just come in right on time, where he's delving a bit theoretical into leadership and management styles and what have you. But Eddie, it's interesting you mentioned that the leadership and management, a leader and a manager are two completely different things, and you've given a bit of a dimension to it. Are you saying that somebody can be a manager but cannot be a leader, or somebody can be a leader but not necessarily a manager? Because I think they are intertwined. Because if you're able to manage a team, pretty much you are leading a team. So
Jen, let me ask you a question. Is Trump a good manager or Trump a good leader?
That I'm not into politics, so I think you might as well let me off on that one. You might want to let me off on that one. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Trump is, to be honest. I mean, with what you're saying right now, I guess, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, maybe our audience or our viewers will probably know a bit more about it. I don't know. I mean, I can't quantify. I can't say which one he is or he's both. But could you have somebody also that could be both?
Yes, you can. You can have, but it's for the person to understand that management, you're relying heavily, very, very much on measurable things, whereby the leader is more of in a supportive role. So how do you develop the team? How do you work the team? So look at what I'll say, more of an emotional reserves.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, it's an interesting twist to it because, we all see our line managers and who are managing us, and we think, okay, this person is leading us, this person is managing us. But obviously, you've sort of, right now, you've sort of delved deeper into it and said there's a very huge or fine line between the two. I guess it will be interesting to know some of the characteristics of who a leader is and who a manager is, so that at least we're able to understand the perspective of where you're coming from and the theories behind it.
Right. When it comes to leaders, looking for integrity, honesty, trust, approachable is the more of, I'll use the word, the softer skills. Okay. Whereby a manager is just going to walk into the room and ask you a question. Hey, what have I got today? How many sales did you do today? They're not interested in, 10 people, I called 10 people and 5 of them didn't respond. No. A manager is not interested in that. He's interested in, what did you do? You're supposed to call 10. Just say, all right, I've got 5 out of 10. End of story. Whereby a leader, you expect the leader to come, okay, how did you manage today? Oh, well, I called 5, 10 didn't, or I called 10, 5 didn't respond. And they can say, okay, what about the other 5? Okay, how can I support you? What do you need to do that? How do we get there? That is the difference between the two.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting thing because as you're talking right now, I'm thinking, okay, somebody leading a team probably would need to have both skills, because I think when you're dealing with humans in a human institution, you've got to be able to find a blend of the two. Yeah, you may have the technical skills, but you also need to have that leadership skills. But also thinking about it right now, some of the softer skills you mentioned and everything else, I'm looking at certain people and I'm thinking, okay, these people are lacking it. So maybe there is definitely a clear difference between a leadership, and probably we make a mistake by interchanging them with regards to that. So let's go.
You can also adapt a model.
Okay.
So there's 2 different things: leadership styles and leadership model, which is which. Okay? A model is where you can copy somebody's leadership style. Or a model that they've used to work. So that was what we will term as a trait, a leadership trait. So you've seen, for example, somebody like Tony Blair. He had charisma. Okay. Richard Branson, he had charisma. Richard Branson can enter into a room, speak, and everybody will just follow. That's true leadership. But when it comes to management, he knows he's not able to do that. So what does he do?
Right.
Delegate it for somebody else to do it. So
Interesting.
he has this vision. Okay, this is how I can get a team there, and this is what we can do to get there. And his phrase that has now become an international, I'll say, principle in business to say, your customers are your employees. If you treat them well, they will treat who? The external customers also very well. And it worked. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, that's an interesting dimension to that. So let's delve deeper a little bit into leading and managing remotely. You know, as somebody who manages a team, irrespective of the number, I guess you manage a team even though you're working on site currently, or you've had in the past to manage a team. And when we're taking it into, you know, the current situation that we find ourselves in, because you just talked about how we need to be adaptable to situations around us, and obviously manage remotely or lead people and stuff like that. How would one, what sort of things would one need to do in terms of managing or leading, you know, remotely?
Right. So then we can go into the theories. Okay. And there's so many of those theories that we can apply. I mean, we can look at the most common or the newest one out there is nudge theory.
Okay.
Nudge theory is now looking at how people are processing information, how they're thinking. So you need to stop, first of all, to be flexible. To understand, why is this person thinking this way? How can I support the person to achieve what they want to achieve? And then that will also achieve my game or my aim or what I want. You can use, I am not a favor of saying leadership style should be autocratic or democratic or free reign or whatever. But what can you adapt at that time?
Okay.
So then you can go back to the leadership model to say, are you using the trait method? Are you using the behavior method, situational method, functional method? For example, John Adair, again, yes, I like using theories because it works. John Adair, he has a principle of what? It's person-centered. What are the company policies? What are the company's goals, dreams, drives? What is it? What are we trying to achieve? So what leadership model can we use? And then what philosophies? The philosophies, we can base that onto the company's, the organization's vision. Are they a servant type? Are they authentic? Are they ethical? Is it value-based? Is it sources-based? What is it? The whole cluster of things needs to come together. That is in the normal if you work in an office. So you now translate that into a virtual world. Everybody can Google it. It will come up with 9 basic principles of how you can manage virtually. But then how do you do this over the phone? How do you do this on a Zoom call? This is where we need to look at. Are we communicating effectively? It talks about communication. It talks about accountability. It talks about strategy, strong leadership skills. Which one do you have? Yeah? Okay,
yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, okay. So you've mentioned a couple of things with regards to, you know, being communicative, being adaptable, ensuring that the policies are in place, and a few other things. I mean, how can one practicalize it when it comes to, I know you mentioned that every situation would demand a different type of leadership style that you've got to use, or a management style that you've got to use. But in this day and age where you like you said, you don't see people, you're sort of using Zoom, you're using phone calls to do all that and everything else. How can you ensure you're being effective or efficient, as you mentioned with regards to that? If you're talking about the nudge theory, maybe if you delve a bit deeper into the nudge theory and maybe practicalize it in terms of remote managing or remote leading, it probably will make a bit more sense to us with regards to, you know, what sort of tips people can use or what situations when they find themselves in the house.
Okay, so one thing we can look at is setting goals. Okay, goals and objectives. So you need to really be very, very clear. Objectives will define what your strategies and how you're going to implement them, or implementation steps to attain the identified goals. But unlike goals, objectives are specific, smart. Okay, I'll just cut it short. I think if you're in leadership or management, or you know what the SMART principles are. Those are what objectives are. They're defined. Completion date. This is what we need to do. The goals are kind of like the milestones of how to get there. and it's who, what, when, where, and how.
Okay,
So
Eddie, you've got to repeat it again for me. It's quite interesting. So the first one where you said objectives has to be a bit more specific, and then goals are also different ways. Because I think most of the time we tend to intertwine it, or we tend to interchange that wording with regards to that. Oh, I'm not sure if we're losing Eddie here. He's frozen a little bit. Hopefully he will get back on track with regards to that. Oh, I lost you there. Yes, I lost you for a minute. So,
right. So
I lost you for a minute.
Objectives will define the strategies and implementation steps to attain the identified goals.
I see. Okay.
With goals, it's different. Objectives are specific.
Yeah. Okay.
Measurable and have a defined completion date.
Okay.
They are more specifically set out to say who, what, when, where, and how of reaching the goals.
Right.
So if you're traveling from Accra to Kumasi, okay, that is what you want to achieve. But
that's your objective.
Exactly. Going from Accra to Kumasi, you have to get to what? Neoplan Station.
Yeah.
How are you going to get to Neoplan Station? Do you have the money to pay for the bus? Okay, you're Neoplan Station. From there, you're going to, have milestones to say, when we get to Fankwa Junction, I'll have some breakfast. When we get to Nsawam, I'll do this. When we get to this, I'll do that. Those are goals.
Okay.
Yeah? So bringing into the business realm, then you have to look at, then you're going to look at talent management. Who has got the skills to do this? Who can do that? And in this virtual world we're in now, you also have to be flexible to allow innovation, creativity to happen. But then talent management, skills, who is doing what? Who can do what? Who do you assign this role to? Or who do you assign this? And collectively, that can be achieved. So a manager will be interested in the KPIs, the key performance indicators. So you need to set those very, very clearly to say, okay, next month, I want 15 sales. And that goes back into what I was saying about that defined strategies or implementation steps with what? A deadline, a completion date. And then you leave it for the team to go and do it, or whoever. So if at the end of the day, they're supposed to have answered 5 calls or responded, all you're interested in is just that 5 calls, whereby the leader can just be working with them remotely. Communication has to go on constantly. That is one of the key things in the virtual world.
Okay. I mean, I have a question. As you're talking, I have a question for you, because you just mentioned something with regards to making sure that, because it's virtual and obviously you've got to manage, you've got to lead people, you've got to find people who have the... can you hear me, Eddie? I think you keep freezing, so I don't know if...
Where are you?
I think I just got to Neoplan Station. You keep freezing, and I'm not sure what is happening there. But can you hear me now?
I can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I was just saying that you mentioned with regards to the need to draw out and look at people's strengths, look at what they can do remotely and all the skill set and everything else. Are we then saying that if in the office you can figure out who can do this because you have a way of tracking them physically, but because you are now managing from home, you've got to change your whole plan, or you've got to change your whole strategy on who to allocate certain things from, because now you realize that Genevieve has a stronger skill set in, say, doing data entry. But then when he gets to the office, maybe Eddie is the person that can do the data entry, that we have a way of tracking it because she's expected to do the data entry. But Genevieve has a more extensive experience in data entry and can deliver within time or can be effective remotely and stuff like that. Is that what we're saying? That it would be a bit different if you're in the office, but then when you come to the house, you've got to reassess and look at your team to see whose biggest strengths you can draw from remotely.
That is what my theme for today is all about: effectiveness or efficiency.
Okay.
That is the key word. Yeah, because somebody can come to the office. They will be there 8:45. Yeah, start at 9, finish at 5, and they will leave the office at 5:30. So that time they've been there, what have they achieved? What's the efficiency there? Whereby somebody is always late. But honestly, you give them the work, bang, done. What do you do with that person? Now they're working from home. How do you check it?
Okay.
Yeah. And you can actually, there's so many tracking tools, time tracking tools you can now buy, because this is a virtual world, what is happening. So there's a huge demand for it. And the market has just gone wild with time tracking tools. Yes, you can use that, but then people feel sometimes there's a positive and a negative part, and I'll leave people to make their own judgment on that. Yeah.
Okay, and let's go back into being effective and being efficient. How can one draw the line? What are the traits, or what are the things to show that I'm being effective? What are the things to show that I'm being efficient?
What are you measuring?
Okay.
What is a business objective? Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a goal or is it an objective? Do you have targets?
Right.
Do you have KPIs? How have you measured it? How are you going to measure it? And that is it. As simple as that. But you have to be very clear to say, okay, now that we're working with them, but then again, have you provided the person with the tools they need to be able to work from home? Not only that, but have you also considered their home environment? Maybe they've got children.
Okay. I'm sorry about this, viewers. We keep losing Eddie. Eddie, I keep losing. Okay, so now you're back. I didn't quite catch. I'm not sure if your audience caught what you said the last time. So maybe you can reiterate it for them.
Well, I was just talking about the notion of, okay, fine, identifying talents and setting goals and targets in the sense of what have you asked somebody to do? Is that person the right person to do that from home? Have you considered their home issues as well? That is the welfare of the person. Have you looked into that? What is their situation at home? Can they do this? Or do you reallocate a different goal or target or achievement for them to do, so you can be able to measure that more effectively? And again, I'm relating that back to the beginning, the question I posed: effectiveness or efficiency.
But I know we've talked about effectiveness and efficiency, but I think they are pretty much the same, because being effective is being efficient.
Not necessarily.
Okay, maybe you've got to break it down for me.
You can relate to it that you have somebody that will turn up to work. Yeah. If you say 8 o'clock work starts, they will be there for 8 o'clock. But what did they really do? From 8 to 5, what have they done?
So are they being effective or they being efficient?
They're efficient.
Okay.
Are they effective? No. Whereby somebody was strolling with apologies and the bus was late, or yes, there was rain, there was this, but guess what? Within 3 hours, what you want, they've achieved it.
So it means to be effective or to be efficient, what you're saying is that eventually boils down to the results.
Results. Why are we in business? We're in business for what? Profit. End of story. We're in business for profit.
Yeah? But then let me put a little twist to it. If you find that somebody, if you're managing remotely or leading remotely, and you find that somebody is not being effective, because we don't want somebody to be effective, but rather want somebody to be efficient, how can we ensure that, what sort of leadership skills or leadership style can you adapt to make sure that you move them from being an effective person to an efficient person within the time frame that you've set within your goals?
Yeah, you can. I will not be able to dictate one particular leadership model or style to use, but as a leader or a manager, you should have, I'll say, the knowledge or the things.
Okay. I keep losing, apologies audience, but I keep losing Eddie. I'm not too sure what is happening. But I'm sure he'll come back again. But for some reason, I, yeah, I can hear you now. Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry about this. I don't know what's going on. It's not raining here. I don't even know what's going on. But please carry on. I'm sure the audience heard what you said with regards to, their
Yeah,
submission.
I was just saying that what leadership style you apply, okay, or philosophies or model you're going to apply.
Mm,
I will go slightly into Maslow, okay, Maslow
mm,
hierarchy of needs.
mm,
Somebody's not doing what is expected of them. You're now managing them virtually. There is not
mm-hmm.
one particular thing that you can pick on, but so you need to pick on so many of the other things. So are they
Okay.
going to be accountable and have an ownership of what
Mm,
they're doing? So they'll be able to
mm-hmm.
report and tell you what they're doing. But you need to promote dialogue and a consistent dialogue. So that if they support,
Okay.
if they have any issue, then they will come in.
Mm,
I
mm.
think
Okay.
somebody asked a
Um,
question about, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's not really a question. So, Lee Wagon, thank you for joining us. Name, thank you for joining us. Miss Katie, thank you for joining us. But Lee Wagon says HR must be able to help supervisors perform workload analysis to determine the amount of work per unit time so you can allocate the right amount of work to the employees. I completely agree with you, but would you also say that the responsibility also lies within the employee? Or whoever is obviously ensuring that the supervisor, so to speak.
Right. Now, is it Jeff Warham?
No, it's
Yeah,
okay. Jeff was one of our previous
that's right.
guests who did
Yes,
who looked at measuring productivity. Yes.
that's right. Jeff and also Equia mentioned something similar.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, audience. I don't know what is going on today. That we're losing Eddie. So please, I didn't quite catch what you mentioned, what Equia and Jeff referred to in relation to what Lee Wagon is just saying.
They touched on that, but in addition to that, and what Lee Wagon is also saying is that HR is a bridge between employee, employer, and third parties. Okay,
Mm,
so you,
mhm,
the manager, you're monitoring, measuring this person. I don't know if you decide to use a tool tracking system. Okay,
mhm,
and if you're using that, and you can, or there's a goal set and the person is not doing that, then who is the leader? Are they monitoring this person? Are they looking at the workload analysis, as Lee Wagon is saying? But then are they feeding that to HR to be able to measure to say, okay, this person is not being able to achieve that. How do we support them? How do we supervise them? So
mm.
you need to work together.
Okay. Would you
Yeah.
then say that the responsibility lies down on an HR person, even though you're managing remotely, to set the goals, to set the objectives?
Um, I would say you need to work together because
Okay.
who does the
Okay.
person report to? They report to their
Okay.
line manager. So if the line
Mm,
manager immediately you realize the person is not doing or they're not meeting the target that you've set, then what do? You have a conversation. And hence you have to, one thing about virtual working is dialogue, dialogue, dialogue.
mm, mm.
Keep that
Okay.
dialogue flowing. So if they're not, why are they not able to do it? Now, why are we bringing HR? Is it a resource issue? What resource? Technical,
Mm,
physical?
mm,
What is it?
mhm.
So that person can be
Okay.
supported and supervised accordingly.
Okay. And in terms of leadership styles or managing the team, are there any, apart from Nudge theory, and obviously we all know the autocratic and the democratic style and all the others, could you also blend the two? Or could you have a situation where you may end up using a little bit of autocracy and a little bit of democracy, or the laissez-faire, whichever one you would want to? Is it something that is advisable to do as far as leading or managing a team is concerned?
Um, as a good leader, you should be able to employ all aspects of leadership styles.
Mm,
because it's more about what behavior. This is what we talked about at the beginning. A leader is a more above what behavior. So don't be don't restrict yourself to only one style. Okay? Bring in different styles. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me take you back to goals. Half of the time we tend to get a little bit confused with setting the objectives and setting the goals, or interchange the words. There's something that I heard called the roles go down, or the goals roll down. What is the goals roll down all about?
I lost you there for a second, so I can't relate to the whole sentence. Right.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that, when it comes to objective setting, goal setting, and all that, you've just touched base on the fact that a goal setting is more to do with the specifics, the strategies. Sorry, an objectives is more to do with the specifics, the strategies, but the goals is rather the tools and the resources of how to get to the end of the end of the objective. My question then to you is that, in a couple of research, you come to hear the word goals roll down. What is a goal roll down, and how does it apply? Is there any practical example perhaps you can give us in relation to setting tasks to people, or managing people remotely, or leading them remotely?
So let's look at the organizational overview to say, let me use the sales industry, for example. You want to achieve maybe 1,200, okay, 1,200 car sales for the year, okay? Divided by 12 months, and therefore, what do you get? Okay, so let's do the math now. Let's do it together. Let's test your math skills.
Yeah, let's do the math. Yeah, maybe you are the guru in the math, so maybe you can do the math skills.
Right. So let's say you want to achieve 1,200 car sales for this year, or for next year. That's your goals that you set. So your objective that you set. Okay. So now we're going to break it down. So we divide it by 12 months, and therefore it becomes what? 100 cars per month. Okay. How many working days do you have per month? So 20 working days. So we're going to divide it. 21. 21? Oh, okay. Let's say 20.
21 on average.
5 days.
I'm talking from an HR hat. 21.
Okay. Let's look at it for the 4-week base and give some bonus here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to base on 20 days.
Okay.
You divide 100 by 20. So therefore, what do you get?
Okay.
5 per week.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's 5 per week, then you can now further divide it again to say how many per day.
Okay.
1 a day.
Okay. 1 a day.
That's your goals.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. But that sounds very cumbersome, though, because then it means that you've got to apply a roles go down to every single objective, assuming you have like 6 or 7 objectives. Is that the best thing to do, or is there like a maximum cap of an objective or goals that you can set an individual, a realistic one?
Then you need to look at each department, and that is why you have specific departments for something. So marketing, how many marketing calls are we expecting? What is the conversion we're expecting? So for example, in your industry, if you make 40 calls, you're going to get 10 people showing interest, or 20 people showing interest. Out of the 20 showing interest, you get 5 people to buy it, and out of the 5, only 2 will actually buy and retain your services. So that's marketing call, and you need to distinguish clearly which department your goals are being rolled down.
I don't know what's going on today, Eddie. I'm so sorry about it, audience. I'm so sorry. I don't know what is going on today. Eddie, I don't know what is going on today, but we keep just getting the cutoff line. But it's okay. We're still still on it. So it's an interesting one. So, so the way you've broken it down makes it easy and makes sense. But, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm more of a pictorial person. I know you talked about the tracking tools and everything else, but for me, if I'm to set my team a goal or some sort of task whilst we're managing or leading remotely, I mean, how can I ensure that, or what sort of picture or what tools can I use to if there's any word to picturize how the end result is supposed to be and have a way of tracking it. Is there any advice, or is there any way, as a person who is managing maybe more than maybe 5 people, 6 people, what can they use as a way of tracking, the goals that they've set the individual teams within their department?
Zoom chat, Google chat.
Okay.
Have a
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Okay.
Have that. This is the one thing that we're talking about, is that constant communication, that constant dialogue must be going on to say, this week, this is what we need to do. Who is doing what? Who is going to take this and who is going to do that? Split the goals and then come back. So then we're looking at, leadership role. And then we can feed in that information with that support to who? The management. To say this is what we've achieved. And then is that in line with the company's or the organization's vision? So although it's coming down all the way from the directorship to the person working on the floor, is also going to go all the way back down. So that's the goals you're going to roll down. But then, yes, productivity is measured and then moved up. So constant dialogue, constant communication. Yes, we are not all in the office to see a board on the wall with the target, but then, hey, you can have it on PowerPoint, email it over to people, and they know what is expected of them. Okay.
Lee Wagon has a question, but Eddie, before my question I have in my head gets thrown out of it, I think I may want to ask this question with regards to what you just touched base on, that you've got to have a goals road and you've got to catch up with the team and stuff like that. Are we saying in this particular instance, their buy-in is not welcome, but rather what you think should be done to achieve it is what you've got to impose on them?
Jen, lost you for 10 seconds.
I'm sorry. So yes. Okay. So I'm going to repeat my question again. So with the submission that you just made, I was just asking you that you mentioned with regards to, having a board to track it, using PowerPoint, using Zoom and all the others. But in this particular instance, for the sales the sales example that you gave, are we saying in that instance, or even leading or managing the people, you've got to be able to use the system of imposing on what we need to do as opposed to getting their buy-in of how to get to the end result?
And that is where the virtual difficulty comes in. I talked about welfare.
Right.
I talked about emotional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you as a leader or manager needs to take all those things into account.
You have to. If you go online and Google the 9 principles of virtual monitoring, it will come up as one of the key things. Jeff has already mentioned that, so I'm not going to capitalize on that more. But it talks about so many things: strong leadership skills, inspiring all, accountability, quality, equipping the people with technology resources, promoting dialogue, trust. Organizational values, objectives, outcome, not activity. Recognition, innovation, be flexible, and welfare. Those are the basic principles with virtual monitoring.
Okay. So which means, in a nutshell, a manager has to be a leader, because some of the things that you just mentioned, majority resonates with being a leader.
That is what I'm saying again in the beginning, that a manager needs to understand that now the person is at home. So if they said, listen, I started work, but my daughter fell off the chair and I have to do this and I have to do it. You don't just get up and say, well, you're supposed to get 6 accounts in. Okay, all right. What can we do to support you? Do you think with your child at home, then you can bring this what Lee Wagon was, then you can bring HR into it? Okay. You'll be spending more time. Then do you want to take this work? Can you do it during the night, or can you do it in a different time?
Okay. I'm sorry, audience. I don't know what is going on today. Hopefully, Edike will come back again and we'll touch base on it again before we wrap up, before we go to Lee's questions. Okay. Eddie, can you hear us? Okay, I think we've lost Eddie for a minute. Hopefully he can join us soon. But I think he was touching base a bit on, in terms of what sort of resources to use whilst managing people, and also looking at making people quite flexible and looking at their situation at home before you throw certain things to them. Hopefully, I don't know if it's the weather where. Okay, so he's back on now. Okay, so he should join us shortly, but he was talking a bit about, oh, there you are. Are you back? Thank you very much.
James,
I don't know if is it raining in Kettering, or it must be the Kettering weather. I don't know what is going on there, but certainly not in Ghana.
I apologize for my services here.
Okay, right. So I think we were on the fact that you were talking about taking into account, the people's flexibility and what is happening in the house rather than imposing things on them. But let's go into Lee Wagon's question. And for those who've just joined us, and thank you very much. Lamte, thank you very much for joining. Evans, thank you. Kweku FP, thank you for joining us. But there's a question from Lee. He said, can you throw a bit light on, where is it? Can you throw light on employee? Sorry, I've just lost it in a minute. Okay, so he says, can you throw light on employee conduct and discipline whilst working from home?
Wow, that's a very. Lee Wagon was to challenge me on that one.
It's interesting because a lot of people are having. It's interesting he mentions it because a lot of people are having a lot of issues having to manage people and having to make sure that they're delivering on time, because sometimes you call them, you don't get them through, you email them, they don't respond, and the next thing you see 5:30, 6 o'clock when you've actually shut down. That is when you hear them or see them responding to your emails and stuff. So I thank you very much for that question, Lee. But I think, Eddie, if you could throw a bit light on with regards to how you can conduct and help with the discipline from working from home.
Right. So whoever I'll use the word supervisor, be it a manager or leader of the person, are you having constant dialogue with the person? Okay. Now, again, are you using a tool? Because if you're using a time tracking tool, it will tell you the last time the person was on there and when they're not on. But have you set a clear goal, a clear objective, a clear work expectations? Have you set it? Because if you haven't set it, how are you going to measure it? You can monitor whatever you want, but if you have not set those expectations, you can't. What are you measuring? And this is going back to the whole thing about virtual is effectiveness or efficiency.
Okay, but I mean, I can see what he's trying to say, but sometimes it's so difficult. If in the office you can track them, but but in the house, yes, you may know everything that is going on and everything else. But I know you talk about dialogue and everything else. But when this particular individuals are not sticking to what you've laid out, then I guess that the next route is probably just having another chat with them and also making sure that if there's any formal procedures that you have to go through, then obviously you've got to do that. But I think that should always be the last resort, because before you jump on the wagon to say, right, I'm going to just hand them over to HR to discipline them and stuff like that, you've got to really find out what is going on. And if there's any support that you can give them, then you can do so. As you said, maybe you can work at night. So you come to some sort of consensus, and it's a two-way street with communication. Maybe I'm having challenges with the kids during the day, so maybe I would want to work at night and deliver so. So it's all about that conversation.
That is the point. What are the objectives of this person that you're setting? Are you focusing on outcomes or activities?
Okay. So which one should we focus on?
Outcome.
Okay. But then aren't you supposed to help with the activities to get to the outcome?
What is the job description? What does the job description say?
Well, okay.
Pick the phone for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more on outcome, not the activity. So clearly, okay, if this person is supposed to make 5 phone calls, the core business hours are 9 to 5. They can't make the calls after 6 o'clock.
Right. Okay.
So they have to make it between 9 and 5. So if between 9 and 2 o'clock they make 10 phone calls or 8 phone calls, okay, we're fine.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, flexibility is key, adaptability is key in this current age.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I think.
Yet the outcomes is key.
Okay.
Certain clear expectation. Yes, we're working with a home, we've provided you with the tools, but we expect you to make 10 calls per day.
Right.
And core business hours are 9 to 5. If the person gets there for 10 o'clock and come 3 o'clock, they make the 5 calls. Hey, acknowledge, reward them.
Okay.
Because they've met the objective, not the activities.
Okay. So AV Council just made. Yes, please carry on.
No, I actually I supported somebody on the facilitation training yesterday, and this was one of the things that came up. And I'm saying, okay, fine. What are you measuring? Are you documenting if the person is not meeting the target and involving HR? Maybe you had a conversation with the person, an informal warning or whatever, but are you informing HR what is going on? So then comes a point when the person is not meeting those objectives that you set. Then HR will take over. But if you're not doing that, then HR has not got any evidence to support you.
Yeah. Okay. So also soon we're going to be wrapping up, but there's one more. There's a couple of feedback on the chat from AV Council. So AV Council says all businesses need to have a remote working policy for employees. First of all, yes, I completely agree. And irrespective of the size of the business, you need to have a remote working policy where it's clearly defined what the expectations are, as Eddie mentioned, with regards to making sure that you state exactly what is expected of them with regards to that. So, I mean, of course, COVID has actually shown us that we have to be able to do that with regards to working remotely and stuff like that. Zenzi Extra asked the last question. Okay, Lee Wagon said, Eddie, you rock. Okay. Oh, go Eddie.
Thank you, Lee Wagon.
Okay. There's one more question from, I guess it's a very quick one because we're about wrapping up in a couple of minutes. And Zenzi Extra asked the question and says, with a tracker, how can you tell? With a tracker, how can you tell they are actually working? Should there not be a track of what has been? Okay, so I have to read this again. So it says, with the tracker, how can you tell they are actually working? Should there not be a track of what has actually achieved?
Going back to that, I like that question because the question makes sense. So somebody can log on 8:55, expected to start work at 9. And then every 5 minutes, they will just touch the mouse. It will show that they're active.
Okay.
Yeah. Every 5 minutes, they will just touch the mouse, and then they will just leave the PC, come back, and so you're tracking them. Efficiency or effectiveness.
Okay. So
you set the goals.
Yeah.
The objectives for them. So yes, you can track them as much as you want. Okay. But then look at the effectiveness, the outcomes, not the activity. The activity is them touching they touching the mouse every 10 minutes, but they're not doing anything.
Okay.
What is the outcome? At the end of the day, you expect 10 calls. Has it been done?
Right.
Yes or no?
Okay. So also soon, I think it's been an interesting conversation. I think what I picked out from here is more to do with there's a clear difference between a leader, there's a clear difference between a manager. Where obviously one looks at the softer skills, other looks at the technical skills. And it's good to have the two together. And there's also what sort of leadership styles you've got to adapt whilst leading and managing remotely, depending on the situation at hand. Ensure that you always set the objectives and the goals for them to understand exactly what it is. Have a clear policy on virtual working and set the expectations, have a dialogue on the expectations of what needs to be done and what needs to be achieved, and obviously achieve over the milestones that has been set up. So I think for me, and importantly, you mentioned two things: adaptability and flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're working virtually from home.
Welfare as well. Welfare is
Welfare
very, very
as well.
key.
Yes, so
Welfare.
I guess welfare links to flexibility. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, Eddie, all too soon we're wrapping up, and thank you very much, all my viewers who stayed with us throughout the whole time. It's been such an insightful session. Before we wrap up, final words from you, Eddie.
This is the way forward, so we all have to now change our ways.
Are you sure? We should be going back to the old ways. I'm sure at some point we will go back to the old ways.
This is the way forward now.
Yes,
Virtual
so we
work.
need to be innovative. Yes, so we need to be innovative. Brilliant. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for your time. I wish you a good weekend in the sunny Kettering.
Thank you.
And obviously, it's also in the evening here, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'm sure we'll catch up again with regards to another session from you. Hopefully, we'll get you to do some sort of virtual training sessions on leadership and management as we're going along throughout the year or maybe next year. So with that said, thank you very much, and enjoy your weekend. And thank you, viewers, for joining us. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.